Vic Vance reporting for duty, sir.
Relax, relax. Are you well?
Yes, thank you, Sergeant.
Good. In here, you can call me Jerry.
Okay.
Okay, Jerry, huh? Now, Vic, tell me, why did you sign up, huh? To stay out of jail? Because you like getting shouted at, huh? What makes you polish your boots and put bullets in your guns in the hopes that maybe you get to shoot someone, huh?
Last week we tackled Liberty City Stories, and I mentioned that I thought it was going to be a killer app for the PSP. As we all know, that wasn't exactly what happened, and while the PSP would go on to sell over 80 million units worldwide, the DS would go on to become the second highest selling video game system of all time, just under the PlayStation 2. So yeah, while the PSP was certainly successful, the DS was a phenomenon. What does that have anything to do with Vice City Stories? Not very much, really. Except for the fact that by 2006, it was pretty clear that most of us realized the PSP was never going to overtake the DS. But that didn't really matter, because we got Vice City Stories. And it's pretty amazing how quickly perceptions can change over just 1 year. Because no matter how awesome Vice City Stories was, we knew that it wasn't really going to be that killer app. So here we are, back in Vice City, which is hands down my favorite Grand Theft Auto game during the PlayStation 2 era. I absolutely loved Vice City. I love the story, the voice acting, the setting, and above all else, the music. I mentioned last week that Liberty City Stories was a really good game, except that I didn't really feel the music. Well, this time around, the soundtrack is excellent, and hell, even Phil Collins makes a cameo appearance in the game, which is all sorts of perfect. So while you won't hear any of these particular tunes in this review for copyright purposes, you can expect to hear lots of era-specific tracks, including Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight, Quiet Riot's Metal Health Bang Your Head, and Pat Benatar's Love is a Battlefield, among many, many others. This time around you take on the role of Vic Vance, the brother of Vice City's Lance Vance, and over the course of the game you will embark on a criminal journey to help raise money for your sick brother. It's a little weird, especially since the game begins with Vic joining the military, and yet within a few minutes he's picking up drugs, killing gang members, and bringing a prostitute back to the barracks. So yeah, a little odd. But once he's kicked out of the military, that's when the game really begins. Regardless of how the game tries to depict Vic, it never really makes much sense. It's really hard to feel anything for the main character when he can so easily go inside a building, kill everyone, and then say, oh well, you know, he's reluctant to take the next mission. It just doesn't really add up. One thing the story does right this time around is the way it handles all the side characters. Lance plays a huge role here, but all the characters are memorable and voiced by well-known actors, including Philip Michael Thomas, Gary Busey, and more. From a gameplay perspective, the game is just about identical to Liberty City Stories. That pertains to mission structure and basic controls, although I should mention here that the missions are more forgiving and longer. Gunplay, driving, and everything else is pretty much exactly the same. That means shooting at enemies and melee combat leaves a lot to be desired. By 2006, open world games had evolved quite a bit. And while I had a lot of wonderful things to say about Liberty City Stories, as I hadn't played that game in ages, this time around I felt that the in-game map could have been greatly improved. While the dot showing you where you need to go works, having a line in the map show me the direct path, or better yet, an in-game visual telling me to turn ahead, would have been much more practical. Had I played this game first, I never really probably would have even realized it. But after spending hours with Liberty City Stories and then more hours with Vice City Stories, I started to realize that yeah, the system is a little bit antiqued. Vice City Stories has a lot going for it though, especially in terms of its business ventures, which you can purchase property, upgrade buildings, and start an illegal empire, which again goes directly against what the main character feels is right, but who cares? The biggest grievance I had against Liberty City Stories was the fact that it played too much like a console game, and that can be said here too. While Rockstar did a few things to try and circumvent the save system, you're still not able to press the start button and just save your game anywhere. And yes, I know that the PSP can go into a sleep mode, but still. I could go on for a while here, but I think you all get the idea. This is a much better, more well-rounded and polished GTA on your PSP. If you enjoyed Liberty City Stories, I'm sure you'll find hours of enjoyment with this game. If, like me, you adored Vice City on the PS2, well then this one's a no-brainer. Now before heading out, I should mention that you can pick this one up for $20 on the PlayStation Store for both the PSP and the PlayStation Vita, but it's also available on the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3.